himself. And he's given us each other. And I was thinking this morning, the most important thing are the words that Jesus gave to his disciples shortly before he was crucified, and that was spoken in John 13, verse 34. A new command I give to you, love one another. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. I think that's the most important thing that we need to know. And we come to this moment in our church service where we give offerings, but this is not the only time that we can give. And there are lots of ways that we can give of ourselves, and only one of them is money. So put your wallets away. Let's just talk about how we can give back to God. We can give of our time, and I think sometimes that time is even harder, at least for me, it's harder to give than money. But if we're going to show love to others, sometimes it'll take both time and money. This isn't the only time that we can give to God. I like to give tithes, not because I'm under the old covenant, because we're not. But a few years ago, I was at a low point. I was at church. I was feeling really down. And I talked to Brian's wife, Shawn, and I told her, I was feeling really down. I feel like sometimes we come to church and maybe we don't really know that people care about us because maybe they don't take the time to show it. And I told this to Shawn, and she offered to come over to my house. She sat down with me in my bedroom, which was a mess, had papers everywhere, but that's the life of a single mom, working 40 hours a week delivering mail. So, I told her my frustration. I told her that I wanted to give tithes, but I just felt like at this point in my life I can't do it. Because at that point I had like $20,000 in credit card debt, and I had ended up going to a loan consolidator to try to get this paid off. And my payment was about $500 a month when I got that in place. And then I worked until I got this all paid off. But what really touched my heart was that Shawn and Brian took the time to come to my house. Shawn sat down with me and listened to my troubles. And I see her doing this. And she's not the only one. I see a lot of people here who are givers, who take time to show love to one another. But I just think this verse is interesting because it's one of the signs that the world will know that we are his disciples. So, that's why it doesn't really seem to matter. I told God at that point that if you can release me from this financial bondage that I'm in, I will tithe. And now it's not hard for me to do that because now when I get paid, I just sit down. I pay my bills online, so I have NewLife Fellowship set up on my bill pay. And I like to get that taken care of first thing when it's payday. But that's not the only opportunity to give. We can give financially. At other times, we can give of our time. We can give words of encouragement to those who need it. And we can share Jesus, the knowledge of salvation, with people who don't know about him. And just the other night, Dean and I went out to Target, and there was a man sitting out with a little table, and he was asking for people to donate to help feed the homeless and veterans. And, I walked up to him and handed him $3, and then he's like, "Oh, bless you," and then Dean pulled out his wallet and handed him $3. And Dean explained to him that when I've come here in the past and I've seen you, I didn't have any extra money on me, but today I do, so I want to give it. And this man was so joyful and thankful, And I feel like that man is doing the work of Jesus, going out. So for me to help support him in that work is just an extension of the hands of Jesus. And when we know that a brother is down, who needs some encouragement, maybe a word of wisdom, or just whatever it is, if we can take the time to just show love to one another. So ask God for God encounters this coming week with people you don't know. It might be a homeless person. It could be anybody. I had an opportunity, and I don't get to do this often when I'm working, because I am mindful that I have 2 10-minute breaks, and I don't want to take more than that. But one of my customers was out walking, and her dog was out walking in front of her. Her dog is almost blind and a really sweet dog, but so this is one dog I trust. But anyway, so they're walking towards me, and I recognize her, and I say hello, and I ask her, how are you doing? And she says, well, actually, I'm feeling kind of down. And she explained to me why, and she started to tell me that she was kind of frustrated because she has this Kindle. And she says, I don't know if you have a Kindle. And I said, well, no, I don't. She said, I was so frustrated because I spent about 2 hours trying to get this thing to work and do what I wanted it to do, and it's just not working. And I could have spent that 2 hours doing something else. And I said, well, I'll tell you what my daughter said to me when I complained of various things like this. First world problem. You know, Regina, who's a global studies major, she has shared this with me, and it comes back to me again and again, because so many of our problems are first world problems, you know. But I was able to talk with her for a minute and find out there was a couple other things, and she found out I was a Christian, and I was able to encourage her to, you know, she was saying she wished her daughter would go on missions because she's a nurse. And I said, well, is your daughter a Christian? And I just encouraged her to keep praying, not to give up praying, because I've seen how God has worked things out in my life. And then she just thanked me for encouraging her, and for, she said, I'm so glad I ran into you today, you know. So we can have those opportunities to give in so many ways to our God. And he says, when you've done it unto the least of these my brethren, you've done it unto me. So let's take up the offering.